Let's go back in time 10 years to 2016. Apple was flying high. They had spent the previous decade proving that by controlling both the hardware and the software, it let them make some amazing computers. And Microsoft was disappointed in the lack of creativity they were seeing from some of their hardware partners, who they relied on to make the computers that their operating system, Windows, ran on. So Microsoft found their own Johnny Ive, Panos Panay, and tasked him with leading up the Surface hardware division. The mission? To make great hardware. Hardware that pushed the boundaries of what a Windows PC could be. Get creative, think out of the side of the box, go wild. And wild they did. They experimented with new form factors like the hybrid tablet Surface devices. They experimented with material like, let's put Alcantara fabric on laptops. Let's create a crazy hinge for a laptop screen. What if an Android phone had 2 screens? Let's try it. The Surface Duo phone is still one of my favorite pieces of hardware I've ever owned. And all of these devices work with a pen, the Surface Pen. And for me, a creative pro who had dabbled in illustration for years, this was enough for me to set my MacBook aside and actually try Windows. But it got better. In October of 2016, Panos Panay got up on stage and unveiled this, the Surface Studio. This was an artist's dream. It was Microsoft's answer to the Apple iMac, an all-in-one computer with a beautiful 28-inch display, an amazingly engineered stand that let you smoothly pull it up and pull your monitor down into this like perfect drawing position. This was it. One of Microsoft's main goals with the Surface line was to test the market with different products to see what consumers responded to, and then let their hardware partners iterate on it. Partners like Lenovo, Dell, Asus, they could run with these designs and make cheaper alternatives that customers would then buy. Better hardware would push them to make better software would then enable better hardware. Now the Surface Pro tablets, a decent success. We saw a bunch of clones. To this day, we still see clones of that. Microsoft's attempts to make Windows a seamless 2-screen operating system, a little bit more of a rocky road there. And the Surface Studio, despite making me and many of the people watching this channel way back then salivate, just didn't make the marketplace impact that Microsoft had hoped. It was a flawed product. First of all, it was underpowered out of the gate. To compound it, it wasn't upgradable. And what really killed it was that it was super, super expensive. So expensive that I couldn't afford one at the time. So I never actually reviewed the Studio. This was a much smaller channel back then. And although the design was great, nobody wanted to spend that much money on a computer with so little power, especially since the Apple iMacs of the time were half the price for twice as much compute. Back in 2016, what I was hoping would happen is that other Windows PC manufacturers would pick up the torch and make cheaper, more powerful clones that we could all enjoy. But alas, that never really happened. Lenovo took a shot at it. There was a Kickstarter a few years ago that literally made a 1-to-1 clone of the Surface Studio by a Chinese company that has disappeared from the internet since. But now, the monitor company ALOGIC has a really cool spin on this form factor that solves a lot of the Surface Studio's problems while hanging on to what made it so cool in the first place. That stand. This was the longest intro to a video I think I've ever done. We don't need the theme song. You guys could stop playing the theme song.
This is Brad. He likes to review the tech. He also likes to draw. And this here is his theme song.
Well, I guess the theme song really will continue until every last one of you has hit subscribe. The ALOGIC Aspekt Ultrawide Touch 34 is not a computer. It is a monitor and ARM stand system that works with your computer. That's one of the major upgrades here. It may seem like a downgrade, but it's not. This fixes one of the Surface Studio's biggest flaws. With this, you can upgrade your computer all you want and continue using the display for years and years to come. I bet the vast majority of Surface Studio owners moved on to a different computer years ago. The Surface Studio was just too slow by now, and the Studio's display and its stand, on the other hand, probably still really good a decade on. So let's break it down into 3 chunks. What are the good, the bad, and the ugly? The good, this is a 34-inch ultra-wide display. The design of this thing is really nice. After a week and a half of having this on my desk, I still get a kick out of pulling it down into the drawing position. And in general, the screen size and the ultra-wide aspect ratio is good. The color accuracy is pretty good. It's got a nice matte coating on it. I like that for drawing too. And the stand is really the best part. It's not as smooth and as elegant as the Surface Studio stand, but it fits the bill. It gets it down to that drawing position without a ton of work. This monitor also has a ton of extras and options here that you would expect from any high-end display. The bad, I don't think there's anything glaringly bad here, but it depends on what you're using the monitor for. The first is the display itself. It just doesn't look as good as some of the other displays in this price range, or even some of the less expensive like Asus and BenQ monitors that I've been reviewing this year. This monitor has a 4K width because of its ultra wideness, but only a 1440p depth. That might not be a bad thing for you, but for some of you, it will be. I'll go into detail on why in a minute. This is a 100 hertz display. Now that's better than just a 60 hertz display, but a lot of gamers are gonna wanna go up to 120 if that's what you're looking to use this monitor for. This is also an LED panel. A lot of people are looking for an OLED panel when you get into this price range. And lastly, this is compatible with MPP pens, which will be a bummer for some folks like me, who prefer EMR pens. The ugly, the price range, that is our ugly here. This starts at $2,380 for the standard stand and $2,520 for the stand that holds the Mac Mini. Oof, yeah, I know, I just crushed the dreams of so many people. I guess there is some good news here. This is ALOGIC's highest end product. They have variations of this at other price points. They sell a slimmed down version of this stand that's very similar, kind of bends down the same way for $220. They also have a 27-inch monitor with a stand like this for half this price. I'll link some of those options down below in the description if you want to check those out instead of this one. And I noticed as I was writing this review that I was really coming off as really nitpicky as I go along. You're probably going to notice that. And I think that's because of the price. If this was an $800 combo unit, I would probably give a pass on a lot of these little details. But if it costs more than the Apple Studio display, I expect that level of attention to detail, or at least something close. So let's start by talking about the stand, because I think that's what makes this cool. It's called the Aspekt Omnifold stand. There are two versions of the stand that they sell. One is just the stand itself, and the other is designed to work with a Mac Mini. It has a little hollowed out area where you can just kind of slide the Mac Mini down in there. There's ventilation along the bottom. There's a cutout along the back for all your connections, all your cords. There's even a hole that makes it super easy to get to the Mac Mini's power button, something that's not as easy to do if it's just sitting on your desk. The base plate of this thing is really wide, so it's got a really solid grounding. The stand and the monitor together are absolutely anchored to your desk. It is solid. The stand itself is half metal, half plastic, the bottom part being metal and the middle part of the hinge being plastic. The up and down motion is pretty smooth. It does take some effort to like fully lower it down into that like laying down position. It's been a really long time since I've used the Surface Studio. I used it in the store at the time, and that had like a zero gravity, super smooth hinge. This is not that, but this is also like super functional. Just takes a little bit more elbow grease to get it down to that fully down position. The Mac Mini is a pretty tight fit in here. When I first put it in, I was a little worried. I didn't have anything to worry about though. It's not going to scratch your Mac Mini. The inside of the case has like a soft fabric to it, so it just kind of like slides in, but it just takes a little effort. I was also worried, like, once I get it in here, am I going to be able to pull it out? And since there are cutouts along the bottom, you can just take your fingers and like push up from the bottom and it slides right out. Now the stand that we have here is painted black metal. For this particular monitor, that's the only color option that they have on their site. I don't think the black looks bad, but it also doesn't fit the Mac Mini all that well. Some of the other stands on the monitors that they have on their site look like they are designed to perfectly match the brush aluminum of the Mac Mini better. And I know, I'm getting nitpicky when I'm talking about color here, but I think the brushed aluminum looks so much better. The Silver Mini does look out of place when it's like encased in black like this. Now the black stand does match the materials that the monitor is made out of. There's this outer metal casing that makes the monitor feel premium and solid. It also makes the monitor really heavy. The back of the monitor is this like glossy plastic plastic. I think it looks better in real life than it does on camera, but it's also a total fingerprint magnet and an interesting material choice for a design that is meant to be touched a lot. You probably already have a device that you're drawing on, and if you've thought to yourself while using it, it would be fun to take an art class with this. And if you have thought about doing that, you should check out my Learn to Draw in 60 Days course. It's designed for beginners with every day a new lesson and new homework to go along with it, get you in there, get you drawing. If you'd like to learn more about this course, do deep dive into what it's all about, check out my website, bradsartschool.com. So let's take a deeper dive into the display itself. This was probably the most disappointing part for me. In general, I didn't feel like this display was bad. I thought it was mid-range. And this goes back to that price again. At this price point, I really want something that's on par with the BenQ monitors that I'm looking at, with that Apple Cinema display or Apple Studio display that I reviewed earlier this year. I know. I've become a bit of a monitor snob here. Now, I did mention this is an ultra-wide, so this is 3,440 pixels by 1440 pixels. That's the resolution. And from a distance, it actually doesn't look bad if it's placed towards the back of your desk. It still looks pretty crisp when it's that far away, but closer, when you pull it down and you're drawing on it, it doesn't look as crisp. Another problem that I had with the stand, it was probably the only problem with the stand, is that I liked having it further back on my desk, but that means that when I pulled it down, it was several inches away from the edge of my desk. So I ended up pulling the monitor a little closer to my head than I normally would with a monitor like this, so that it was just easier to pull down to the drawing position. And when I did that, I did notice kind of the blurriness of the text more than I normally would on a monitor. Another thing it has here is a matte coating. That is very good for drawing because it gives it a little bit of texture, so when the pen is going over it, it doesn't float around like it does on a lot of glossy screens. It also reduces glare, which a lot of people like on a design monitor, but not all matte coatings are made equal, and this is one of the grainier coatings out there. So when you have that lower resolution of the display matched with this particular matte coating, it can make that text look less than crisp. Again, on a cheaper monitor, this wouldn't be such a big deal, but on the second most expensive display I've ever reviewed, I really want my text to pop. The color range on this monitor is pretty solid. I found the accuracy to be good enough. It's not going to be the Apple Studio display or one of those BenQ design monitors. It's not going to be that good, but it's plenty good for what I need it for. It's got a 90% Adobe RGB coverage, 94% DCI P3 coverage. Another thing I noticed after using it for a few days was there was some color bleed along the bottom of the display. It took me a while to notice. It wasn't like super pronounced. And it's one of those things that I didn't pick up on early on. And I think the reason why is because when the monitor is on for a long time is when I start to notice it. So when I just toggle it on for the first time, you don't see it at all. And for most of the time that I was using this, I was in Windows. Windows has a gray taskbar along the bottom, so on a lighter screen, you don't notice the light bleed quite as much. But when I would move it over to my Mac and play with it there, Photoshop has a darker interface. So when I was in Photoshop, that's when I could really see it because that black was lined up along the bottom where that light bleed was. This is a pen-enabled touchscreen. Usually on a monitor, that's not something I'm looking for, but since you can pull this down and draw on it, it's a great addition. And it works really well. It's worth noting that the touch works on both Mac and PCs. The monitor does come with a lot of bells and whistles here that you find on some of the highest end displays out there. For example, there is a ton of ports on the back of this. Inputs for HDMI, USB-C, DisplayPort. There's a second DisplayPort here, so you can use it to like daisy chain another monitor to this monitor, at least if you're using it on Windows. There are two USB-A ports for plugging in accessories. There's three USB Type-C ports for that. Although one's at like the very tippy top of the monitor, that's probably for people who want to use light bars and like plug them directly in there. Using those USB ports along the side, whether it's the A or the C, you can charge up to 90 watts out of those. So you could even get fast charging out of this monitor. If you have a Mac laptop and you plug it into this monitor to use it as a monitor, it's also going to charge up your MacBook. It'll probably do the same thing to a Windows laptop. I just don't have one sitting around to test. There is an audio jack. There's an Ethernet port. There are these magnetic little cable clips that like snap into the side. That's a nice touch to kind of keep your cords clean. There are onboard speakers here. They're kind of mid. I think the Mac Mini speakers are actually sound better in this case. My MacBook speakers definitely sound better. So if you've ever tried a touch screen on a Mac, It's not the best experience. Touch screens on Windows, it's just Windows is designed to be used for touch, so it works so much better there. I think they realized this, that touch on Macs kind of stinks. So they made some of their own software that lets you create your own hand gestures and that sort of thing to use it. Now, we are getting some touchscreen Macs this fall. That's what the rumor mill out there says. So it's possible that it's going to be really easy to integrate that with these kind of third-party touchscreens in the future. We will see. I'm hopeful. But on a Mac, not all the gestures are going to work the way you expect them to, like if you were using an iPhone or an iPad. Okay, so we got to get here to the pen. This is an MPP pen, and I'm not surprised that that's what they're using here. This is the same exact pen that they're using on the Surface Pro devices, that Surface Studio I talked about at the beginning of the video. ALOGIC has their own version of the stylus, and you can pick that up for $120, but this is the same underlying tech. That stylus came to me about a week and a half after they sent me the monitor, so a lot of the drawing I did, I was using a Microsoft Surface stylus. It's the same thing. Their stylus does have a USB Type-C plug, so you can plug it in and charge it up that way. Microsoft's made it really easy for manufacturers to add this kind of functionality to their devices without a ton of hassle. And unlike a Wacom tablet or a Huion tablet or something like that, you don't have to go through the process of installing drivers or anything like that to make it work. It's just plug and play. You grab a pen and you start drawing. So the pros and the cons of an MPP stylus like this. The pros is that it works on a lot of different devices. It's easy for the manufacturer to implement. It tends to keep the price down, although at $120, this is a very expensive stylus. These styluses are designed for handwriting. Like that is their superpower, for taking notes, not so much for drawing. So why is that? Well, one, the palm rejection is really, really good, which is something that you need when you're doing handwriting. It's really nice to have for drawing too. But for longer lines, for angled lines, there's a lot of heavily pronounced digital wave that you're going to find to pens like this. This isn't something you're going to notice when you're writing fast and taking notes and just making letter forms, but when you get those longer lines, when you're getting loopy lines, that's where you're going to start to see that wave appear. It's definitely something you're going to notice when you're drawing. And my art style especially is pretty dependent on like crisp ink lines, so I definitely see it right away when I start using a pen like this. If you have a more painterly style where you aren't as dependent on like really crisp line work, you know, it's probably going to matter a lot less to you. Pressure on the pen was kind of a bummer here too. That's something that these pens usually do fairly well. Even though there are 4,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, which is more than enough, it doesn't activate evenly, and it creates this stair-stepping effect or this shoestringing effect at the end of lines. It's especially noticeable on fast lines like hatching lines. But you are also going to see it in your just everyday line drawing too. What about this pen on Macs? Well, I went to the website that is listed in the instructions that came with the pen itself to grab the drivers. That link did not work. I tried it on several different browsers. I went on Windows just to make sure that it wasn't just happening on a Mac. No drivers there. So I Googled it and I found the drivers that way. It installs the touch interface stuff as well as the pen drivers. And the pen is, it's really bad on Macs. I'm not surprised. It's really unusable because of all the jitter. It's really bad. So for the pen, I would just totally skip it for the Mac. Not worth it. Again, I'm not surprised. I've seen MPP pens before trying to work on Macs and they never work well. This one is just really bad. Just skip it. So do I recommend this product? Oh man, I wanted to love this. And I love the stand. I love the size. It just let me down in other areas. The pen is exactly what I expected. I wasn't really actually let down with that. It was really the screen and the display itself, that light bleed along the bottom. If I was using this on a Mac, I think that would drive me nuts. On PC, it didn't really bother me too much. Some of those little details, if I was spending my own money on it, I would probably go with a stand that is silver, although you can't get the widescreen with that one. I think if I was spending my own money, I would want to get a higher resolution display. Ultimately, it comes down to, like, what do you really, really want? Do you really, really want this stand? Do you really, really want this ultra wide monitor? There's nothing else quite like it in terms of form factor out there. ALOGIC has something unique. And when you have something unique that no one else is really offering, you can get away with charging a premium for it. If you're going to use this for note-taking and photo editing, even if you're using the pen for like 3D programs, I think this display with this arm it could make sense for you. If you're a professional illustrator and you want a monitor that you can draw on most of the day, all day, every day, I would pass on this one. I think that pen is going to hold you back. And I think you could pick up a really, really nice $1,500 XP Pen 27-inch display and just get a better experience, right? You're going to give up that stand design. You're going to give up that elegance, even if you went with like a monitor arm that lets you pull it down. I get that, but still, it all comes down to price for me. The Apple Studio Display with the fancy stand is $1,600. The Studio Display XDR, it's a lot more, but it's not giving you the same kind of color accuracy that you'd expect from an XDR. So I don't know if that's really a comparison. So for me, when you're coming at this with such a high price, with the mid-tier monitor here, that's really where it breaks down. Am I being too hard on this? Is the specialness of the stand and the monitor the thing that I should be focused on and not the quality of the display itself? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.